Okay, it's turn 31. And what you all want to know is, was there more plague this turn? And the answer is yes. Yes, there was. In Sacred Lake, there was more plague. But more important than that, perhaps, our monolith is awake. Hooray! So it's raining men, the monolith. Our mono drop option, our throne claimer, is up and awake, which is good. That also means Dom spread candles, which is handy for these guys in this lake, although I really wish it was over here, helping me with the fact I have, 4 candles total between my cap and this province. And I've got 6 candles over here, which is good considering Machaka's capital is right there. So a lot of land to fill in there. There were a couple of battles this turn. We'll get to them in a moment. Actually, no, let's do them first, then we'll go through the events. We cleaned up just a little bit of Lankan territory. They're basically giving up at this point. They're just going to fight a defense of their capital. We're doing some final trade-offs of we're going to help gear Sparkles. So their plan is to resurrect Sparkles and then teleport Sparkles out with some gear to go do stuff in the world. And you know what? We have great respect for Sparkles, so we're going to send them some gear in exchange for some gems. And then in Forest of Pine, TNN reclaimed a province per agreement with us, 207. The agreement always was if they could push off the the Agathans and Machakans and Britians, then this province would go back under their control. So it's back under their control. You can see Thunder Striking Wizard Thrasher has moved back out into 194 as their tentative counterattack begins. In terms of other things, big development is more research for us in the form of lightless lanterns. The lightless lantern is going to be really key to our entire plan here. So Therados is expanding production as quickly as possible. It's one of the reasons why we're casting Voice of Tiamat everywhere. It's because we need the fire gem income. We've also traded for some fire gems. We're just going to turn them all into lightless lanterns. Everyone who plays Dominions, I think, knows the lightless lantern. It is the best research booster in the game, in my opinion, because if you can apply discounts to it, 2 fire gems for 12 RP per turn that you don't play maintenance on is great, and it doesn't get your mages killed that often. It gives them a forced retirement date when horrors will eventually come murder them, but that retirement date is usually after the game ends, and thus not your problem. So make it future HR's problem, not yours right now. Lightless lanterns are equipped on our mages, so what we're going to do is we're going to take these Pelagian Explorers, we're going to take the versions that aren't particularly useful. And for me, that's things like the A random. The A1 random is not particularly useful. They get a lantern. And all of a sudden, that's 25 RP per turn in my Magic 2 scales. Fantastic. That is going to start jumping up our research curve, and it's one of the few reasons why a living Therados is actually super beneficial. That extra 1 gem discount on their forges means 2 gems instead of 3 per lightless lantern on a relatively affordable forger. I'll buy that for $1. So we're going to send all of our fire gems off, and we're going to manufacture as many lightless lanterns as we can, and we're going to drive our research into the absolute stratosphere. That's the one way to remain relevant while being not particularly large. Other than that, gems, we twice spawned our god. This is a nice little insurance scheme. Got him up onto land, twice spawned him in Caverns of Gold. Does this mean that we need to hold Caverns of Gold? Yes, but it's not the most vulnerable province. Ideally, I would have twice spawned in the cap, but I was too busy site searching. I didn't want to waste a turn. This is still relatively secure. What this means is we get 1 suicide drop with our god, without dropping any globals that he happens to be maintaining, because he'll come back as a white chassis and not lose the globals. So what this is actually going to be is if he puts up globals and we're hiding him, he can survive 1 assassination attempt, 1 remote attack, 1 anything like that that manages to kill him. You actually have to take him out twice in order to knock down our globals. Other than that, searching, we found a Garden of Frozen Flowers over here, which I think is 1 water. Yep, with our Siren. We found 2 in Black Forest, so that's 2 water, 1 nature. That's getting our water gem income up to 16. You think that's a lot of water gems, and obviously our team has lots and lots of them, but I'm going to need more. I'm going to need lots and lots more, because eventually we're going to melt all of these water gems, and we're going to melt them into astral pearls using pearl farming. And then we're going to do some crazy shit. But right now, not so much. Finally, there was a random event battle. And indie attacks can be heavy, but this was barbarians plus vampires and a vampire count. That's 20 vampires right there. And luckily Atlantis just happened to be moving a major army through. And also, luckily, even though vampires have invulnerability 25, Coral Guard hit sufficiently hard that they can beat them down. Plus there was a priest here to do banishment, which is good. So the Atlantean army under Stalin was able to resist, but they did lose 10 Coral Guardsmen doing it. This is, 300 gold of investment plus extra. So using that to kill Indies that attacked a province worth 33 hurts a little bit, but it is what it is. We're not going to get Lanka though. Lanka is under siege. It is breaking. You have Boars, Arvim, Dawn Guards, Heavy Archers, Trolls. There are 2 mill carts here, and those mill carts are the ones that were brought, I presume, to counter Sparkles. There's no taking that on. So Therados will remain on this province. They will construct a fortification here. This will be our demarcation line, and then Hinom is welcome to the rest of it. Now, what have we got planned? Well, I am going to, I think this turn, start recruiting some priests to get these provinces templed up because it's an absolute requirement. I have all my target non-temple infrastructure now. I don't actually think I need any more forts. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 land forts. I have 2 underwater. There might be a case for a 3rd underwater, but eventually I'm going to wander over to Atlantis' lake and take over this one, so I have a base of operations in their lake and can do remote stuff in their lake as well. It's also important because I need to be able to get Astral Mages over, so I might need a coastal fort for this one. I need to get Astral Randoms into key forts of theirs to protect them from mind hunts, but that's not an immediate priority because no one's at war with us. What we're going to do in the interim, I told you we're going to trade with Sparkles. Now, Sparkles has assured us his intention is not to fight the Hinnomites. The items went last turn, by the way. Is not to fight the Hinnomites, it's to get them to bounce out and then do raiding over here in Team Cold's land. That's okay with us. We're all right with that, and the trade terms were good. But we really think this war is ending, and it's not a serious proxy conflict. It's mostly the elves that we're worrying about holding these two back. More supplies going out to TNN this turn. And obviously we've handed back some territory. I'm not as confident about their counter-attack probabilities as they are. They're very confident right now. I guess you would be after throwing the enemy off your capital in a really, really one-sided conflict. I'm just worried the volume of resources coming at them is going to be too great. We're going to allow the Machakans to transit. So we have an agreement over these 2 provinces. We can transit over 1, they can transit over 10. The Machakans are going to transit over province 10 to presumably move these reinforcements south. That does tell me they're not positioning them against Team Cold. So there's not an imminent plan for war. What it means is Chris is deciding that the need for military resources in the south is sufficient that it's worth sending them on this long journey to act down here, rather than we'll win this war really soon, and as a result these resources would be better spent against Pangaea and Niflheim here. Because remember, this here is like the Niflheim-Pangaean border with Team Chris. So we'll keep an eye on that. On God Spotting Duty, I don't know how to pronounce that in terms of the god type, but it's one of those Middle Eastern pretenders, McGilly G, Umuhulu. That's my best shot. So not a chassis I've seen particularly often before. The Raven of the Underworld is out and about. I'm not sure where I spotted it, but it's moving around doing its thing. We've seen Thunderstriking Wizard Thrasher. I don't have eyes on Sneck the Drakon. So Sneck the Drakon is in an unknown location. And our gods are obviously doing our thing. So Ultimate Smithing Minion is site searching. The Monolith will sit and research until we need it to do something else. And my god, having completed his Twiceborn process, is going to resume his process of site searching. However, Troll Dung has been found in the Cavern of Tog. So, what this means is that this province here is going to be attacked by trolls. Lots of trolls. Lots of trolls in a cave where where their natural traits benefit them greatly and disadvantage our troops. And we don't have the army nearby to stop trolls. The problem here is that that is the province that is the only province that links our territory at the moment. So once again, thanks to a random event this time, the umbilical cord which links our territories is going to be severed. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do instead is, instead of walking my god through this province and risking it, I'm going to teleport the god over to this territory here. I think that's probably what I'm going to do. I really want to continue site searching. I don't need this 38 research. I do need the Y path search to find astral pearls, to find death gems. Death gems in particular, our team's not been very good at finding. I've got 5 income. The others are not doing great, and Theridos has had needed them because Theridos is summoning E4s, lots of E4s, to make spectral units, which will be the Therodian army. So that's turn 31, that's our plan. I will save the big roundup for now, and I'll be back in turn 32. It's turn 32, and the plague continues. So Javal Kish has got it. Pelagia instead has a local sect, which took Dominion candles away. I really didn't want to lose Dominion candles right now, guys. Like, that is not a thing I could spare. It is turn 32, and I have 1 Dominion candle in my capital. Awesome. However, got lots and lots of gems. So payment from Lanka from the item dump that we gave them before, very much appreciated. I think they knew they were on their way out, and they were happy to do good terms in exchange for Sparkles being well geared and his run into the afterlife. And then I told Stalin I needed some water gems for my plots later on, and he interpreted that as, send me 176 water gems right now, and 2 astral pearls. So you can't say that my boss here, Stalin, doesn't take things requests seriously and doesn't go all out. 2 more lightless lanterns. We have to divide these among the group right now, but still, every couple that I get is useful. And we hit Thalm 2 and Thalm 3. Thalm 3 was necessary for a range of spells. Voice of Tiamat found 1 earth income, so average payoff. We pinged an independent province, and we get to see the Machakan army. Then I'll talk about the war in a moment. We got to see the Machakan troops marching south. So it's just basically some shamans. So he's got, at least 1 or 2 shaman provinces, but we knew that. And then a big block of lion warriors. And these lion warriors, with their attack skill, shock resist, fire resist, defense skill, magic resistance +3, regen, blood surge. Pretty dangerous. I mean, they're going to hit often. They don't get hit as often. They always hit very, very hard. They didn't need a magic weapons bless because they had built-in magic weapons. Regen, blood surge, resistant to fire and shock, so not vulnerable to a huge amount there. They already had good armor values, and the frost damage vector, so things like falling frost, don't tend to have armor skips in their AoE versions. They're not armor piercing like fire. They're not armor negating like shock. So protection stops the cold, fire resistance and shock resistance stop those respectively. Regeneration and blood bond stop overflow and chip damage as a strategy. The general statistics mitigate the damage coming in, going out. This is a brutal bless on a good quality unit, and a big block of them are marching south. Anyway, our poor PD gets absolutely trashed. But that is, if I could send it home, I would, but there is no way to do so. So that's unfortunate. The other unfortunate thing is this war has suffered another reverse. So what happened was Snek the Drakon intervened, and as a result, TNN has basically been thrown back. Thunderstriking Wizard Thrasher is dead. A number of raiding thugs are dead. TNN's forces are not entirely depleted, but partially depleted. And you can see right here, the Drakon, Snek the Drakon in 194, where it cloud trapped. The situation here I would describe as precarious but not fatal. While having Snek reduces the number of things that TNN can do to win, so TNN's previous strategy of just have a big line of Sacreds and then grind out the fight while a couple of thugs go to work doesn't work as well against a Drakon, because the Drakon can line punch. It can drive its way through a line by using a combination of poison, multiple attacks, etc. I believe Drakons also have fear, and that would be a significant line breaker ability eventually. However, TNN is absolutely capable of thugging. absolutely capable of thugging. So I don't think Sneck is going to want to push on TNN blind, because if there is a nation that can put out thugs and even in limited quantities assassins capable of dealing with a Drakon, TNN would be one of those nations. It'd be very hard in an assassination because the Drakon is so strong, has so many hit points, etc. It's not a human target. But in a battlefield situation, I can imagine a squad of counter thugs from TNN doing the job relatively well. So we'll see how this war progresses. I don't see a reason to change our macro level strategy, which is prop the elves up so they can continue the conflict against our primary geostrategic rivals. But we need to watch it closely. Varnheim is sieging for Moria, but has suffered some reverses against Rus, is my understanding from their reports. Good old Hedalas is doing his best to be relevant with his last Wind Riders. He's sieging Saramatia this turn. Things like this are very important because they keep the incomes down on the Saramatians. But you can see these big blobs of Urish troops who have marched a long way. They have come from the western flank over to support their ally in the east. And that's what you've got to do in a Disciples game sometimes. You've got to combine and concentrate on single targets in order to win the day. And it can make Disciples fights really brutal because the amount of economy that can be focused on particular fronts is very, very large because everyone's got safe fronts facing their allies. And then on the one war front you have, everyone sends everything there and you have a big all-in brawl. So I'm not going to dwell on this turn particularly much. I'll note that two things we are thinking about is we're starting to think about, in fact, I think we already have a confirmed design, is having Ultimate Smithing Minion geared out to take on this Springhawk Throne. So that would be achieved by sending in a version that cannot be hurt, that cannot hurt Springhawk. So something with like a Shock Whip, for example. The Springhawks would surround the Telkeen, who would be defended from the rest of the army, so the barbarians and everything else, by the ring of Springhawks around it. It wouldn't be able to hurt the Springhawks, and they wouldn't be able to hurt it if it was sufficiently shock resistant. So that would just be a draw. And then the Telkeen's Foul Vapors would just kill everything else slowly. I think it's reasonable. I think it works. I think it works even if the Anunnaki of the sky is alive. So we're going to gear it and have it a try at some point, because netting throne number 2 would at least give us some leverage in this game and allow us to force someone to come at us if they want to win, or at least be more likely to have to do so. In particular, it limits the risk that Team Cold secures this throne, and as a result has an easy win if they successfully rush Team Chris. Oof. Okay, so that's the broad plan at turn 32. I don't see any reason to dwell on this further. We'll do a roundup in turn 33 or 34 probably, because turns of peace don't tend to be as eventful, but you can start to see our idea taking hold. You can even see my priests starting to come out, where they will begin constructing temples if I can find the money in the budget. It's research. Our plan is to take our research graphs and put big increments on them and put research ground on people while they're all fighting their wars, and then using magic we'll be able to be competitive even if our units and mages just aren't as good as everyone else's. They'll have better spells. That's the theory, that's the thesis, but you're going to have to sit with me for a bit while we plan and plot for it, unless someone attacks us out of nowhere. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think anyone has the motivation for that to happen, but I'm going to always keep my ear to the ground about the risk that that happens. It's turn 32. I'll see you in turn 33. It's turn 33 in our Land of Luck scales, and we have Plague. Rumours of Plague, which I think is actually worse than the Plague event in the other province. Trolls, Misfortune, a little bit of gold. Hooray! And we were attacked by 24 forest trolls in that cave, so Caverns of Tog. That link is now severed. It's done. We ain't going anywhere, we ain't doing nothing. Bada bing, bada boom, we're kind of stuck. Unfortunate. Other things that happened, we got a little bit of gold from Machaka to compensate for our PD, which was very nice of them. They didn't strictly have to pay that. 3 lightless lanterns, which I always appreciate. Inch 7 appreciated. This is completed, rather. That's good because Serpent's Blessing. So we're now a Serpent's Blessing plus Foul Vapors power. We don't have the nature access to go all the way to Gift of Health, But we're doing okay. I'm going to push enchantment 8 for the moment, but I'm not entirely set on that course. All I know is I want to go up enchantment. I want mass regen if I need to fight, because the more buffs I can throw on my units, the better. But really, I want Arcane Nexus and Gift of Nature's Bounty, because those are insane endgame spells that we could cast and then hide underwater and still be relevant with. For Gift of Nature's Bounty to work, I would need Dominion. I'm working on it. My allies, my teammates, they have worked on it and they're good. There's only one province in their lake that isn't covered by their dominion. Their candles aren't strong, but they are building temples, which I am lagging behind on, but I'm getting there. I've got the priests out. These priests are going to start. You can see I've got some gold. I'm going to make some temples. I'm also training level 2 priests now. I'm actually I spent a capital turn, and I'm going to spend more fort turns on getting these level 2 priests, because in temples they're quite effective at driving your candles up to a reasonable level. And while this war is raging, there's a temple here now, but I was hoping that while the war is raging and temples were being destroyed, there might be a chance to get some Dominion presence. Unfortunately, this is complicated by the fact that Snek the Drakon has claimed the Throne of Life, which I'm pretty sure is that one. So that makes that throne a 2-pointer with a +1 growth scale and 2 dom spreads. So there's now 2 Agarthan temples in 194, which might burn some candles off Tir na Nog itself. One can hope. So that's all the events. That's what happened. We got lightless lanterns, blah, blah, blah. We found a bubbling fissure, which I think is air. Yep, 1 air. We cast teleport. So we're now here in Grey Barrier, which we're going to search, and then we can move through here and search. So I'm glad we bypassed the Caverns of Tog, because that would have been really, really bad. And then over here in Blue Water, this province has been relinquished to us. We moved a commander in, and the idea is because we will be the one who pays to fortify eventually this province. It's going to be one of ours. It was Atlantis's, but we're okay. We're okay moving on from that. The big analysis this turn, so there wasn't a crushing battle, I believe, in the Machakan front. However, I can see evidence of penumbrals and seal guards, so raiding units right out here. What I'm going to need to do at this point is find a way to discourage this team from moving into this territory. If push comes to shove, I'm going to claim this territory from TNN before they can claim it. I want TNN to win, don't get me wrong, but I also don't want Agartha stretching all the way from sea to Shining Sea. That would be problematic, to say the least. That said, the elves, while they're obviously being pressured on the TNN front, Varnheim's raiding far and wide. We saw a Varnheim thug this turn, one of many, I'm sure, not even geared, and yet good enough to do the job with a few Vanhirs with it. Oh, he's just using Vanhir raiding. Doesn't even need the thug. Nice. Did he lose anything? Nope. And then we can see Femoria is still under siege. I still don't see how he's going to break this, though. Femoria is a, 500 wall? Yeah, 500 wall integrity fortress. 120 Blackhawks and Greathawks. Great Eagles, maybe, but not the Great Hawk commanders of the Hawk Brigade. Anyway, Atlantis is also, because Saramatia is suffering so much, just eyeing off this throne here. Just eyeing off 161, Sutu. Have the troops to do it. That said, going to have to talk to Saramatia about it, because we won't start a war over it. We need good friends. We need to keep people walking this road with us. And if taking a throne in Saramatia's cap circle is going to cause immense problems, we'll back off. If not, because of the extreme situation they find themselves in, we'll take it, we'll secure it, and then we'll negotiate its future later, after we have cleared it. Good old Theridos continues to site search as well, as does Atlantis. Atlantis has even got their hero Oddbur out, searching for some paths you wouldn't normally see, from us anyway, which is good. Every gem we can get is solid. This is normally the turn count where I would stop and do a summary, but I think I can go one more, because these have been some really quick turns. Our strategy isn't changing, our plan isn't changing, the wars are proceeding pretty much as they have, so I think I can fit in one more turn before I do a summary, so I'll be back in 34. Alright, turn 34. A couple of things changed after I recorded the last episode. which we can cover now as our introspective, which probably makes this a slightly longer episode and a better one to do the summary. We got our magic lightless lanterns from Therados, and then Therados sent a message out to the whole world, and rightly so. By the ever-flowing benevolence of its reigning men, the forges of Therados are now available to you. Ultimate Smithing Minion and his many interns are opening up the mighty forges of the sunken paradise to all involved in the Ascension War. Items of up to and including greater magical nature are now for sale. Items of the elemental and naturalistic persuasion are available for purchase, for those are the only paths you shall ever need. Don't listen to anyone telling you otherwise. They are simply scams trying to rob you of your hard-earned gems. Only true proven Therodogian items are of the quality needed to win the Ascension War. Please contact SSG-73 with your orders. Disclaimer: USM and his team take no responsibility for any losses due to magical mishaps, random bird attacks, random elf attacks, random pexide drive-bys, invasion, giant cannibalism, demonic invasion, horror attack, random troll adventurers, and random abominations from beyond the void, and any and all other circumstances that may arise from the safe and unsafe use of our products. So, what we're basically saying is we're going full capitalist mode, and now that we have got enough production capacity to meet our requirements, we're just going to throw the doors open to everyone else, shove as many resources as possible into the fire. So we collect gems, other people get items, they use the items on each other, they die, they lose, they get transferred, they do damage. Either way, it suits our interest to have those items out there. That doesn't mean we can't offer better deals to people we are closely aligned with, but the appearance of neutrality in our dealings is important, and also just increasing the general level of lethality of the conflicts is important. So Therados sent that message out. We'll see how many orders I get this turn. We also claimed our throne. Hooray, we have a throne. Not to be outdone, our god, its reigning men, has wounded the earth. He has drilled a well of such depth it has tapped into an artery of the earth itself. The well yields not water, but the very blood of the earth, a substance of enormous magical puissance, he says, taking a shot at that. So, let's take a stop and talk about that for a moment and how it clicks in our strategy. First of all, this is the global enchantments menu. Pangaea controls Mother Oak, the least surprising thing in any Dominions game ever. A early age Pan controlling Mother Oak. No one's going to contest that. However, Atlantis holding Earthblood, Deepwell, and Riches from Beneath is a new one. We went Riches from Beneath first, partly because the Therados and Atlantis benefited from resources, but mostly because the income boost was noticeable and it was what we were so desperate for. That said, we didn't OC it too heavily because we wanted Earthblood, Deepwell, and Earthblood, Deepwell has done fantastic. You'll see in our gem income in a moment. In fact, let's look at that now. We'll do the summary again, but if you look at the gem income, it's gone from Pelagia doing the heavy lifting with Voice of Tiamat and my searching, and my God searching has also been successful, to Atlantis taking the lead with a timely EBDW cast. So that makes our gem incomes much healthier, and Earth gems have solid utility. We're a bunch of conjuration nations. We can do a lot with Earth gems. We can do Troll Kings is the biggest one that comes to mind, because that gives you access to all the big E battlefield magic, and all the big E battlefield magic requires decent E casters, and Troll Kings are perfectly good for that. There are very few things Troll Kings can't do. They can light thug, they can heavy thug, light SC, battlefield cast. They're good, they're solid. I'm happy to have them. I hope I have them eventually, and having an extra 20 Earth gems per turn is going to help in that endeavor. It feeds into this overall cancerous strategy though, right? Which is, let's pile up a bunch of globals, make ourselves really unappealing to attack, and thus let's have our economy that's mostly hidden underwater. Not entirely hidden underwater, but mostly hidden underwater. More for the others than for me. My economy is strewn all over the land at this point. And then we can be relevant even if we have to hide underwater, because globals are powering all of our incomes. Like, you can see this gem stockpile. This is a good gem stockpile. Some players would criticize the idea of stockpiling gems, but I have a plan for each and every gem type. There is a reason I am stockpiling them. And since I am not at a war now, I don't need to spend them right now. The only difference is the fire gems. As soon as Therados has more forging capacity, he's getting those so he can increase production further. What did we find? Broken Maze. 2 Earth, 1 Astral. Happy with it. The God's been doing well on the site search, which is solid by me. And then Forest of Pine. So we discussed this with Therados. Not Therados. TNN. TNN was TNN, I told TNN my concern about this Agarthan raiding force here, and how it was important to me that Agartha not advance. And I told TNN that I am going to attack in this province with their permission. I was going to attack that province in order to ensure that there was no line of invaders elsewhere. At the same time, because I didn't want to be problematic about this, I did tell the Agarthans that I was going there as well. I didn't tell the Agarthans that TNN knew, and I didn't tell TNN that Agartha knew, so that no one was advantaged or disadvantaged by these dealings, other than the fact that everyone involved was less likely to bump. Now, whether it's because of that or not because of that, what happened instead was Agartha, instead of moving to this province, moved to High Mill, and TNN was defending High Mill. In fact, TNN has been defending all three of these provinces, according to what he's told me. So Agartha moved into this province and died, which is okay by me. Some of it may have retreated over here, but I can't see any Agarthan units here now, and TNN holds High Mill. So either Agartha retreated or TNN is telling me the right thing, and he defended at High Mill. There's no sign of an immediate offensive against TNN itself. We can see a big army of Lion Warriors. This looks like they've got some long dead horsemen too. I imagine there's going to be some siege chaff at some point mixed in. I can't see where Sneck is. Sneck might be dropping on thugs or small armies, trying to isolate them. But it looks like Machaka might be responsible for the next siege. Agartha's had been kicked off. It's time for the Machakans to have a go. Anyway, Fomoria still under siege. Ur's forces blobbed up and present on this front. Saramatia finally liberated, although Swinland, which is in the cap circle of Saramatia, not yet free. That said, Saramatia mounted a very strong case that we should stay the heck off 161, despite the fact that they really can't stop us, and we were right there. But sometimes in Dominions you got to make sacrifices for good relations. We pulled the army back. We said, okay, all right, fair call, fair enough. In the name of our friendship, we're gonna leave that one. So we did. Atlantis withdrew, and I'm hoping that'll come back around. That they'll remember that later on, if we have to draw on favors from them at some point as well. Really annoyed by this. This Caverns of Tolk thing really annoys me. But with this Atlantean army here, we can start to redeploy towards the west, which is our most likely theatre of operations. So, for the moment, the elves seem to be holding. Our research is coming online, our gems are doing well, we've got some globals up, we're trying to carefully manage the international diplomacy and balance of power. Let's have a look at how we're actually doing. So, I'm a little bit above where I was a couple of turns ago because I've reclaimed from Indies and my trades with TNN have gone back and forth. Atlantis has lost a little ground. Therados is exactly where they were. I finished a little more. Well, I didn't finish. I got handed some infrastructure, which is why Atlantis went down. Income's climbing slightly. They're climbing slightly because we're getting Dominion candles, and Dominion candles mean both scales and also riches from beneath. But we're still pretty poor, and in particular, Therados is still very destitute in terms of gold revenues, but our gem incomes are in much, much healthier spaces. We have a lot of time to search and a lot of paths to search with, and Tiamat is a very good spell to do remote searching as well. So we're really getting as much out of our territories as we can, and I'm going to now double up the searching of Atlantis' territory and Therados' territory to try and squeeze more gems out of it. But I've got land to search in the interim. The gem income is important. It's important to our strategy, and we're going to keep building on it. I don't know how we compare to other nations, but I'd be willing to bet that we are competitive with nations that are, well, teams that are larger than us by a significant margin. And that's important. Research, you can see our curve is changing now. Everyone's curves are changing based on who gets the most lanterns, but I'm increasing more than anyone else because I'm the one I'm the one more than anyone else with the cheap, affordable, superior adept researcher. Adept researcher is the term. I'm the one with the best affordable research mage that can produce lots and lots of them every turn without thinking about it, even on my mediocre budget, and put them in Magic 2 scales and be really effective. So I'm doing well there. Our Dominion is it's okay. We have vision over everyone's Dominion through one of our sites, and we know we've got the least Dominion of anyone who is still like alive. For the record, like that's Team Hinoms. They have slightly more overall Dominion than us. Everyone else is yeah, kind of trouncing us actually, and I'm really concerned. Team Cold has built up candles quite quickly. Whereas Team Beratos, Agartha, Machaka, who's the god again? Agartha. Yeah, so Agartha was first, now second, but they're both got a strong Dominion presence. Poshing them back's going to be difficult. Army size, the only interesting thing about the army size, well, actually, no, there's two. The first is the Atlantean army continues to be smaller than mine. I'm going to laugh about that. Now, let's ignore the fact that his troops cost 3 times as much as mine and are much more than 3 times as good. Let's ignore the quality issue. Pelagia is the military powerhouse of the Underwater Bastards. Because numbers is all that matter, bro. Numbers is all that matters. Theridos, however, is catching up quickly, and that's because Theridos has got their E4 production continuing to ramp, and they're just reanimating artisanally crafted ghosts. Each E4 produces a ghost. I can't remember if it's 1 ghost or 2. Very small number of ghosts per turn. And Theridos is lovingly handcrafting ghosts in their capital. But because they're adding E4s every turn, the number of ghosts per turn is increasing. And with the rest of us shutting off troop production so we can afford temples and mages and useful things at this stage of the game, Theridos' army may actually catch us. So what are we thinking? Okay, so here's what we're thinking. The Elf War is going to continue. It's probably going to lapse out at some point. At that point, we will need to identify who is going to win the game because the Elf War is ending, and we will need to organize and muster a coalition against that party. That's what we're thinking. That hasn't happened yet. We're not at that point yet, but we've got to be wary of it. If I was to bet who it is, based on just what I know of the terrain, I think the breakaway is going to be Team Chris, not Team Cold, because Team Cold is facing greater resistance. Team Cold was always going to face greater resistance because their war was still going when the Elf War started, and then when the Elf War started, their opponent of choice was Varnheim rather than Arcocephali and TNN. And Varnheim, all else being equal, same quality of player, Varnheim is going to chew and spit out things that Arcocephali and TNN would struggle with. So Basilius Basil's fighting a really good defensive war as TNN. His brief window where he thought he might counterattack all the way to old Arcocephali is gone, thanks to Sneck dropping his army, but he's holding for the moment. When it looks like he's going to collapse, we need to look at this thing. The other reason I say it might be Team Chris is because if you look at where the negotiations are going, I would say it's night and day. There's really friendly interactions with Team Hinom, Saramatia, and it's definitely not worth discounting this team, right? Because you're like, oh, Saramatia's had a hard time. Saramatia's had a hard time for the same reason that Team Cold's had a bad time. Their first opponent was Varnheim, and they got really punished for being not just fighting Varnheim, but being first one in. They went in first, a turn ahead of everyone else. Hinom, however, is massive and productive and wealthy, and soon will be a 2-cap nation because they'll own Lunka. So there's a lot you can do with a big, powerful Hinom, even if your teammate has suffered a little bit. And Foxy Dean running over here, they're not huge. They have never been huge, but they're a reasonable, moderate-sized empire. They've got high path mages. They've probably got some good gem income. Don't rule that team out. But it's Team Chris that has this narrow front that has secured almost all of old Arcocephali, that is competing to secure TNN, that has got the lion's share, that until the first siege of TNN hadn't really lost a major conflict. I can see lots of reinforcements coming in. I don't know, if I was to back a horse, that's the horse I'm going to back. Their interactions with us have been, I would say, cordial, but tough. Chris is a very tough negotiator. And more than once, what's happened is I've been dealing with the small stuff with the individual players. So I'm dealing individually with Agatha, for example, and I'll come up with a situation which I think is a good deal, and we'll both be pretty much there. And Chris, who's running Diplo on the big stuff for the team, will come across and quite forcefully adjust those terms before we get a final confirmed agreement with the whole team. So really, really tough utilitarian attitude, which I can both respect, but it doesn't get the bonus points or the goodwill that you would get from me if you were give a little, take a little. The Team Cold is an interesting one because so GCs vary between being like positive and watch out for underwater teams. So he warns people about us. He uses it as a threat, encourages people to punt us back in the water. But when we're actually engaging with him and his team, he's really nice, which puts him in the middle in terms of the diplomatic desirability. Add to the fact that Six, who's running Pangea, so Six is sort of the other end of the spectrum. Super friendly, love talking to the guy, great. We shared our suffering over the plague to date and all that sort of thing, but he's also vomiting Dominion all over my lake. But, the solid interactions go a long way. So, in terms of both diplomacy and my read of the map, I'm more concerned about Machaka, Veritas, Agatha than I am about Team Cold. But we're going to keep a very close eye on this war. TNN is our most important information sharing partner. We're going to keep the made in Therados items flowing, and because we're now selling to everyone, there'll be nothing suspicious about the fact that all these items are appearing. We're not stamping them with made in Therados, but even if people ask questions, the answer is, well, do you want some? We'll sell you some. We're trying to sell some items to other players right now. So we're not really, as much as we're having a difference, we're not going to be driving that conflict one way or the other. Anyway, I think that rounds up turn 34 pretty well. I'll be back with turn 35 soon.